Vic, tell me, you had a little bit of interaction with 9/11. What was your experience with that?
9/11 was on a Tuesday. I was supposed to have court that day. And what wound up happening was a couple of days before 9/11, the week before, a guy I had taken a couple of stolen cars from had information about some dirtbag employees in DMV. I had two cases that almost went that way that went nowhere. But he had information supposedly about DMV employees pumping out driver's licenses. So we were going to set up in Manhattan court that morning a proffer. He was going to come in. He was in jail. We are going to get him pulled from Rikers. We're going to have his defense attorney there, the district attorney there. My sergeant and I were going to interview him. We were going to find out what information he had. Was it legit? And maybe work out a deal. It's called Queen for a day. So anything he tells us short of a homicide, we can't use against him. And if what he says sounds good, I would have signed him up as an informant and try to work that case. So I got to my office at 7 o'clock in the morning. The plan was to leave the office no later than 8 because it's going to take a while to get down to Manhattan, find parking, punch in, and get into the Manhattan District Attorney's office around 9. Get in at 7, 8 o'clock. Where's my sergeant? He comes in late. He's farting around the office. I'm like, come on. We got to get going. He goes, all right. So we're late. I'm already stressing out. We're going to be late. Our office was on the second floor of the housing police. One of the housing cops comes upstairs and he goes, put on the television set. A plane just hit the World Trade Center. So we put on the TV, watching it like everybody else. Here comes the second plane. I'm like, holy shit, this is terrorism. So the call comes from downtown. Everybody get in uniform, stand by. And I don't know, 12 o'clock or something like that. We all got in different cars. The Queens guys all went in a bus. We took different vehicles. We drove down the west side. We parked, and it was like something out of a science fiction movie or a horror movie. There was just papers and debris flying everywhere. And they were handing out those little masks that if you were going to demo your bathroom over the weekend, like you didn't want to get sheetrock in your lungs. And I remember just like the closer you got to ground zero, the darker it got. It was because that explosion of concrete and dust and all that crap was basically blocking the sunlight from getting in. So the closer you got to it, the darker it got. And I remember we were walking in on Broadway and everything, cars, food carts, everything was just covered in white, just this toxic dust. And I remember seeing hundreds, if not thousands of pairs of women's high heel shoes because all the women that worked in the financial district when they were fleeing can't run in heels, took off their shoes and just tossed them. And we were walking our way down Broadway and we noticed that like one of the apartment buildings, the maintenance staff stayed behind. So they let us in and gave us some food and snacks and stuff. And I'll never forget this. There was a guy in that building that was from Afghanistan. And he goes, I know who did this. And he told us chapter and verse because he lived in Pakistan as a little boy, was in the United States like 30 years. He was telling us about the Taliban and Osama bin Laden, and it's fascinating. Like, and then later on, you find out everything this guy said was true, and there was just so much wild shit going on. So, like, I remember a guy passed us, like we're getting closer and closer to ground zero, and we don't know what to expect. Like, as a cop, I had 14 or 15 years in, so I had seen some horrific things. But I felt like a child not understanding what I was seeing because it was bigger than me. If that makes any sense, like you're a cop, you see someone shot, you see a bad car accident, your mind processes it. Like, okay, I know I got to do this. This was like, it was like being in a dream, essentially, that you're seeing things, but it's not computing. And I remember a guy in a spacesuit walked by us with some device that looked like a Geiger counter. And we're like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, is this guy work for the government? Or is it a guy from New Jersey that has a Geiger counter like, today's the day, So we got up to as close as you could get to it. And I felt like Charlton Heston in the last scene of Planet of the Apes when he's looking at the Statue of Liberty head on the beach. There's a huge chunk of the facade that must have fallen a couple of 100 feet and just burned itself into the ground. It was just standing there. Like, holy shit. And there was no rhyme or reason to any, like there was paperwork, there was a laptop, there was a baseball from someone's desk. Like it was, I hate to say this, but at least my opinion, I was pretty sure no one was getting out of that.
Yeah.
Like everybody held out hope for weeks, days, and months, but like if you were down there enough, you knew. Everybody was just, those poor people were just disintegrated into that.
Yeah. Did you have to work down there for any extended period of time?
Yeah, I was there the first week,
Okay.
but the NYPD, there's 40,000 members, so
Yeah.
they would rotate us in and out. So like the first week we were there, it was so cloudy down there and stuff. I remember the second day, the next night I went back, or the day after, it was 1 or 2 days, it was so close. I remember like seeing cars, like cops wrote "fuck you, Bin Laden" in the dust in people's cars that were left behind. There were cops from Chicago that drove down in a Winnebago like camper, like they were down there like within a day or two. Like, would they like blow every light from Chicago to get here? Like they were camped out, like a couple of blocks from Ground Zero. It was just wild. Some of the stuff you saw down there. Then they pulled us out. And then I went back a couple of weeks later doing the bucket brigade. So we were like ants on a pile of sugar, passing debris in joint compound buckets that was getting sorted out later. Since I worked in the auto crime division, there's a dump out in Staten Island called, I think it's called Fresh Kills. They had closed it that year because it was full. They reopened it. And then when they started going in there with the heavy equipment and taking stuff out in bulk, with dump trucks and cranes coming in, pulling shit out. So they had us out there opening up the cars and cataloging the cars to make sure no one perished in a car. So I was going out to that dump. That was like being on the surface of the moon because that place is so high up in the air and you got all that methane from years of things compost. It smells like a big fart there. And it's just so damn windy. You're like on top of this mountain of debris.
Any residual effects from working?
Thank God. I go for cancer screening every year. Thank God. I know a lot of people that have died from really weird and bizarre cancers, like guys that never smoked a day, in their lives and die of lung cancer. So just try to eat right and stay healthy. But I don't. But,
But that cancer screening, is it specifically because you
Yeah.
worked?
Yeah,
Wow.
anybody that was down there, it's federally funded, called the World Trade Center Screening.
Every year then?
Yeah, every year, like blood, urine, chest X-ray.
Wow.